Hey guys, hope everybody's been doing well. I have a pretty fun video here. I think a topic people might be interested in. I wanted to talk a little bit more about sample cards, but really the concept of Curio cards. I think that's something that's really hasn't been discussed a lot for some reason. Seems to be flying under the radar, but I think this is something that is super cool, innovative, and unique. Something I haven't seen in other card games that I think is really a brilliant idea by the company. So I got a few slides here. I want to walk through some examples from the latest Tabletop Simulator updates, but let me start here first from the Kickstarter page. So when the Kickstarter campaign, which was back in March of this year, 2022, March April timeframe, it hit the $1 million mark, and this concept of curio cards was introduced. And I think this was kind of bantered around in the Sorcery Discord before that. So this is something we kind of expected we might see during the campaign. But nevertheless, this was revealed. And the way this is described is that it's a very rare mystery card showcasing the history of Sorcery's creation. So for one thing, very rare. That could be a separate video in and of itself, potentially. We don't know the rarity of the curios. I think people are probably anticipating that they could be at least as rare as the foil cards, or possibly more rare. We don't know how many are in the set as a whole, how many copies, or pull rates, or just sheer like unique versions of curio cards that are going to exist. We know very little, almost nothing. The only thing that has been revealed is this kind of teaser. And, in this first image, this is the Eric's Curiosa card. So we believe this to be a color sketch card for that, that was produced by Francesca Beraldi. So it's a very significant card, unique rarity in the game, very powerful card as well. So we'll probably see that as a curio. I guess that's a pretty reasonable expectation. It'll be interesting because it is a full art, right? So is it going to be a foil variant, perhaps, on the facing side, and then the full art might be like a sketch version rather than the full art regular version on the back, like you're going to see on the other foils, where you have a foil regular face copy, like a regular face image, and then the full art without the text boxes on the back. This would just be a sketch on the back instead. This is kind of interesting because it shows kind of this black border. This looks like a Magic the Gathering card, and we know that early on Eric had talked about how the game in its earliest design concepts was fairly similar. I don't know if it's very or fairly, but he said it was pretty much heavily influenced by Magic, and it was his own take on that in the very early days when he was playing with his own alters and kind of evolved it into his sorcery vision with Nick, his co-creator. So this looks like your classical Magic outline, where you have the truncated image or illustration area up top, and then the card mechanic and mana cost and whatnot. Or I guess in some cases the text may speak to a cost. You'd see a mana cost up here, but you have the classical black border, and it's not like a full art like you see in the classical sorcery design, where the art wraps around the entirety of the card, and then you have the box mechanic and the title box up top. So maybe we'll see some early variants of cards that he had designed. And again, I wanted to point to this article. If you go to the collectorarthouse.com page, for those of you that are new to the channel, go to this interviews and articles page, and there's a bunch of artist interviews, but also some articles I've written over the last many months. And there's this article called Sorcery Contested Realm Curio Cards. And I had some thoughts and ideas in here of what we could see for curios. Here you go. This is the one I was just talking about, a closer up image. So you have the sketch card, and that's pretty blurred because I just basically took a screenshot from that Kickstarter page I was just showing. This is the actual Eric's Curiosa card. So you see the color composition up here was not complete. This might have been some kind of variant before it was finished, maybe to preview the card to Eric when Francesca was working on that. And then this would be more of like the finished version. So on the normal foil card, you would get this in foil, and then on the back you'd see this. So perhaps you'll have a curio card where this is foil, and the back has this sketch card. Or maybe it's non-foil, and you have the sketch on the back. I guess they could do either. This just talks about this Easter egg in there. It has this element, the Exalted Orb, which is from Path of Exile. Company that Eric co-founded with a couple other guys, and there it is embedded in the artwork. So there's a few other thoughts in here of what the Curios could be. Perhaps the Elemental Avatar sketches. Look how amazing those sketches are. That'd be really cool to see. Um, but the point is, I just wanted to kind of point you guys to this and go take a deeper read. The reason why I pulled it up, so here when I was talking about the early Magic card design, this is something Eric had splashed in Discord last October, a year ago, um, in October 2021, with artwork from Wayne Barlow. So this was, I don't know if he was just templating with this artwork, which I'm speculating he owns this artwork and may have commissioned it from Wayne. And he was just playing with like different mana cost or threshold elements and card layout that was somewhat, this was like kind of like an evolution. I wouldn't say this was the Magic type template because it doesn't have that black border or any border at all for that matter. This is more the Sorcery evolution of the full art with the text boxes as you see them today. Um, but moving on, well, I wanted to get into this idea of sample cards being, in a way, the first Curio cards, and why I say that and why I think that is. All right, so just some information I pulled together. So we got to start with the various elements that make up a card. So you have at the top, you have your title box, name of the card. On the left is your mana cost, the threshold. So that's one of the 4 elemental symbols. Your power level on the upper right. Pipeline text is at the top of this box, and that's where you find the rarity of the card and also the type of the card. So it'll speak to a relic or a mortal, like a minion or a creature, or a relic, right, or a site. And then here you have the rules box. So that's where you get the card mechanic itself, and then the artist at the bottom. So what I'm showing here now on the next few slides is some of the changes that we saw through the Tabletop Simulator releases. So the data here compares the May Tabletop Simulator update compared to the September update that we saw. And we're expecting another update pretty soon, so it'll be interesting to analyze that. But this is the aggregate data of all those changes, or some of the key highlights of those changes. On this slide, I'm showing the card title changes. So there's 8 in each box, just to save you some counting here. 8 bullets, 8 bullets, 8 bullets, right? So there's 24 cards in total that had a name change, which is pretty substantial. In a card set of about 400 copies, that's roughly, 6% of the card population change. So that reminds me, I wanted to point out that like this concept of curios and just the state of the game kind of lend itself to this naturally for sample cards to be almost like curios, because they're very representative of the early development of the game, and there's been so much significant change since this game was introduced to us at Kickstarter. So the May Tabletop Simulator update, although it had a lot of changes, it was probably fairly representative of the sample cards that we saw. Although even then, there's significant change even from there. So I think the print file for the curios predated the May update pretty significantly, and there's a lot of change between that. So when you have a sample card, you really have a piece of historical development of the game, just like a curio may be in the actual alpha release. So that's pretty cool and fascinating. That's why people love these sample cards. I mean, it's kind of like the gamma cards in Magic, where they were from what I understand, more about play testing than actual like print testing with the printer. But it's a similar concept. It's representative of the early days, and that's like the closest comp I could find. I can't really. It seems like these other games coming to Kickstarter are perhaps more mature in a way, I'll say. I mean, this is kind of a criticism in some folks' eyes that like when the Kickstarter was released in March, when that went live for Sorcery, it was still, what we're finding out today, 5-6 months later, whatever it is that there's been a lot of game change and evolution since then. Not just cosmetically or art being completed. It's fundamentally, there's been a lot of game mechanic change, name change, templating change, everything. So this is a kind of a unique situation where when they started doing their test prints with the printer, the cards were in a very early state. And I can't say I've seen that in other games where there's sample cards. Like you look at MetaZoo is another game that had sample cards. I think those are pretty representative of what came out in the official Kickstarter product and then the subsequent products. I'm not certain on that, but I can't really think of any examples where you have this like significant evolution of an early print card from a more mature state card that's actually a sample print card. and not just like a, creator drawing on pieces of cardboard to just play test some rough ideas. So anyway, 24 cards change names, and you can see the two from here. Some were like minor tweaks, I guess I would say, like Vantage Hills changed to just Hills, Enlist. Well, so some are more significant. Enlist changed to Call to War, which just sounds more epic, So I think some are just because they're more cool sounding. City of Agartha changed to Kingdom of Agathar. So that's pretty cool. It's more flavorful, I'd say. So I think these are just kind of like a taste thing from the company. Hang Glider changed to Wing of Invention. So several examples here, and I think for the most part, I have a few examples of these where the sample card is representative of the first name, and then in the September updates, that's changed. So sample cards will not reflect that change, and again, you have that early historical reference. All right, so then you have card type changes. So this is pretty interesting. We saw a couple examples where the type of the card changed. So fundamentally here, the Hang Glider, the name changed, Hang Glider to Wing of Invention, but also it was a minion, and then it changed to a relic. And again, if you look at the type line text here, that's where you see that difference. An ordinary mortal, so mortal, that makes it a minion, carried high by ingenuity. And then it changed to an exceptional relic carried high by ingenuity. So a couple changes there, actually. It was an ordinary that got upgraded or buffed to an exceptional. So it's a higher level rarity. You see the when it changes from a creature to a relic, you see the threshold dropped off here. So it's just got 1 mana cost, no threshold cost. And then the game mechanics significantly change. So there's actually quite a bit of change here. There's some templating change as well, it looks like. That's probably a function of it going from a creature to a relic. The color of the boxes are a little bit different. And then similarly on Scroll Curator, this also had a name change to Browse. The cost of the card changed. So your threshold went from 1 to 3. That's what those little alchemical symbols represent. And then also, again, the rarity was updated, an exceptional mortal. So it went from minion to a unique magic spell. Minion to spell, rarity, name change, massive changes here. And I know this sold for quite a bit. The person that bought it was really into those changes and caught on to that. And for one, it's a unique, so that's going to be a very rare card when it's in alpha. But the magnitude and significance of change is so great that this is really awesome having this older version in a sample card form. All right, so going on, card element changes. So only one example of this. This is a very major change because it changed from a earth elemental or earth element card to a fire element, and then you know that from the symbols. So here's the alchemical symbols for fire, air, water, and earth. Speaking of air, the one of the major changes there, the other example we saw earlier, is that the avatar of wind changed to the avatar of air. So that's naturally could be a curio, but we have sample cards that say avatar of wind, as I recall, which is very, very special and unique. So many changes here again. The name changed, the element changed. That's what I'm highlighting on this page. The rarity stayed the same. And, naturally the text had to change to reflect the reference to the name. And then I guess the flavor text stayed the same. I didn't pull any examples of this, but there's been quite a few flavor text changes as well. So that's kind of cool, too, to see the old quotes or made up flavor text, I guess. The flavor text comes from various inspirations, but a lot of those changes, too, that you'll find in the older sample cards. All right, so rarity, I already showed a few examples of those incidentally and showing the prior examples, but for Stonehenge, we had both a name change, Stonehenge to Standing Stones. So I guess they wanted to kind of make it its own unique thing and not reference the site that obviously that's inspired by. But the rarity had a big jump as well here too. It went from exceptional to elite. So that is quite significant. Elites are extremely rare. You can only run 2 copies in your deck, so that's a major game mechanic change as well. So really cool. Rarity change, several changes here. Let me move on. All right. So in conclusion, let me wrap it up here. So sample cards are curios. That's my thesis because these are representative of early development. So I have a few examples here where I show a early sample card that I had and I had auctioned on our Facebook group, and then this is the May update in the middle, and then the September TTS update. So you kind of see from sample to TTS update midstream in May, a couple months after the Kickstarter, to September, and then we'll see, with this latest release if these change even more. But you have the scroll curator, name change, cost change. It was 2 mana and 1 threshold cost. Changed to 1 mana, 1 threshold to 1 mana, 3 threshold. So again, quite significant design change. And going from an exceptional to unique is major too, because that affects the number of copies you can have in your deck. You can now only have one of those, and the card was buffed accordingly. You can look at the top 7 spells, put 1 in your hand, and the rest on top in any order. So that's extremely powerful to have that foresight into your deck and kind of plan out your next 7 turns. That's pretty amazing card and pretty affordable to play. All right, sample cards are curios. Another example, Old Growth Forest. This, the name changed from Old Growth Forest to Haunted Forest, and it made a huge leap in May from an exceptional to unique. So another example of a major buff and upgrade there. And then yet again, when we went from September, so it went from Old Growth Forest to Haunted Forest in May, and now the Geistwood in September. So what's it going to be, guys? We're going to go back. We're going to change the name again. It's pretty cool. So this is your sample card. When you have a sample card, it's going to be an exceptional rarity level. It's called Old Growth Forest, and the mechanic changed. They changed kind of like this term Genesis and what that means for the ability of this particular card. So there's been a lot of changes like that to kind of clarify the mechanic or upgrade or downgrade as needed for deck balance or game design balance. All right, so it looks like that was my last page. Just wanted to wrap up and kind of summarize again that the reason why I'm coining these as kind of like the first true curios that we're seeing is because we're seeing what a curio is meant to be. It's supposed to be the historical early development of the game. It's supposed to be extraordinarily rare. That's what sample cards are. But we're going to see a different twist on that for the alpha set, and we don't know what that is. It'll be interesting to see if there's like throwbacks to what the early version sample cards were, or if we'll see something entirely different that maybe we don't know about the early historical development of the game, and we're going to find out anew once we start cracking packs. But again, I think it's an incredible idea for early adopters like us that are really into the game and into this history. But also just to give another chase element, and also just to do a homage to like your first debut. You're doing a homage to like the development that the team's done for the last several years. It just feels like a special thing, and I think pulling those cards, they're going to be rare for one, so that makes them special. And then just having that piece of history is going to be super cool, and it's another element of chase, different from the foils. I assume we'll have a full set list. Maybe we'll have a tabletop simulator update where we know the full card list, but we will not know the curio details. So that's going to be pure discovery through opening packs, and that adds a crazy layer of mystery. I'm kind of like conflicted on it because I want to know as a completionist like what the full set is, make sure nothing's missed, but it's gonna force us to look closely at every card, right? Even the ordinary rarities, we might find curios in that slot. So you got to look at every detail, and you can see there's a lot of detail that changed, so you got to look closely. It could be let's go back to the top. I don't know. We don't know what a curio is, but anything is fair game, right? You could have a name change, mana cost, threshold cost, power level, type line text, rules box. Even within a rule box, you could have a flavor text quote in there that's different. You're not going to have a different artist, and you're not going to have I hesitate to say you're not going to have different art. It'll be the art, I presume. But who knows? It could be an early variant that was scrapped by the artist or kind of reimagined or re-envisioned in the iterative process with Eric and the artist for the card design. We've seen a lot of that in the articles I've written, the behind the art features, and my interviews with artists where they talked about earlier copies. Some that evolved into alternate arts, like the Elvira example that ended up being released as a stretch goal during Kickstarter. So it's anything and everything potentially, and these sample cards are our first taste of that, and that's what makes them really cool. So that's it, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. Again, 20-minute video. Speed it up if you need to, but appreciate everybody following. If you could please like it and share with your friends. I'm trying to grow the channel. It helps to comment and share and like the video, so I appreciate you guys following along. Hope you like this comment. Please also comment, give me some feedback if this is the type of video you like seeing or if you want to see something different. And thanks again, everybody. Take care. Till next time. See ya.